Good morning, everybody. It is August 11th, 2018, and welcome to all of you. I hope your Saturday is off to a great start. This is the third and final installment of how I got my Terminated YouTube channel back for the fifth time, the nuclear option, or when all else fails. And let's back up a little bit for a slight bit of recap. As I mentioned in part 2 of this series, there's a couple prerequisites for getting terminated YouTube channels back. The communications that you get from YouTube are always very dire in nature. You know, you've been terminated, appeal process is done, you've lost, you're prohibited from creating other channels, and that's a big onus on you. You know, YouTube is like one time and gone. It's like AdSense. Once you lose your AdSense on YouTube, it's impossible to get it back. So it's something that you have to cherish. Now, YouTube is not quite that draconian, but a lot of people just willy-nilly go off and they start new channels. And then before you know it, they go down the road for a while and they're suddenly terminated because YouTube's ever refining systems catch them and make a match and terminate the channel. It's a very frustrating thing. So this is why it's very critical that you clean up your terminations and make sure that you can start fresh and clean and not be what we call an outlaw channel on YouTube, because sooner or later there's a high probability that you will be caught, even far down the road. So you want to make sure, like I did, to go back and make sure that you bring back that original channel so that you're always in the green and you can never be terminated for violating YouTube's rules and terms and conditions. So number one, you have to have that desire to be on the right side of YouTube at all times. Number one. Number two, you have to have that desire to get the channel back. And a lot of people, because of the draconian and harsh way that YouTube deals with you, one rejection is usually enough to kick out 95% of the people from even trying going forward to get their channels back. And number three, you have to have the proper methodology approach. And lastly, number four, which is 90% of the battle, is you have to have persistence. You have to be able to persist. And as I mentioned in part 2, I know of cases that have people people that had terminated channels appealed for 17 and 18 times before they got their channel back. Remember, as I said in part 2, your likelihood of getting your YouTube channel reinstated is directly proportional to the amount of time and effort and number of times that you appeal, plain and simple. Unless it's a channel like Alex Jones InfoWars, where they've made a decision that the content is not suitable for YouTube. In those kind of cases, it's very hard to bring them back. But the average entertainment channel or channel that gets terminated on YouTube, there's really not that much that the average person does that got terminated that's really hyper offensive on YouTube. And as a result, they just want to make sure that the punishment is really something that's lasting and has a lot of value to it in terms of making you change your behavior. Now, in terms of what I do, there's nothing that I really had to change. I came under a very vicious and prolonged, organized troll attack from a group of people that sat in a hangout and decided to cooperatively target the channel. Of course, YouTube's algorithms are much different now. And these days, it's very easy to reverse and do away. It's maybe time consuming, but it's very easy to do away with it. Plus, all my content has been cleaned and rated. Anything that's adult rated should be. And even things that people flagged, and this is going to be a subject for a separate video, even things that people flagged to get adult contented, about 75% of them were reversed, and the funny thing is they were under the yellow limited to monetization, And when I went ahead and did my appeal, and in a future video, I'll show you how to get that appeal so you get heard and actually acted upon without having to wait for 1,000 views in 7 days. 75% of those videos that were flagged were restored to full green monetization. In other words, it was total win in doing that, because there's appropriate settings for things like, I'm not going to get too much into this, things like bikinis being outside and things, and you can't discriminate against women that are out there in bikinis doing things in a trans gal such as myself, and YouTube now realizes that, and they're a lot more even-handed. But let's stick to the subject matter at hand. Let's say you've appealed 5, or let's say you've appealed 2 times and you're getting frustrated. You know what you got to do? You got to sit down at your computer and you've got to start writing a letter campaign. Okay, this is not the nuclear option, but this can't hurt. To write to the, don't write to the terminations department at YouTube, but what you want to do is write directly to the CEO's office and explain to her, Susan Wojcik, exactly what is going on with your channel and why you think that you were unfairly terminated. Now, you're not going to hear anything back, okay? But then again, you're not going to get the letter back from a legal department or a channel termination department that comes to you at your Gmail messages and says, you know, this is the way you appeal suspensions through this link. If you feel like your channel was suspended in error, please click this link, and they give you that 1,000 characters. In other words, they have a very well-defined loop to keep things very internalized and very automated. Okay? Understand that it's going to be fully automated, but there's nothing automated about a personal letter that's marked on the outside of the envelope personal to the CEO of YouTube, because somebody will actually read that letter, and now you've created a body of communications that you can cite going forward. Now, remember, you really have to believe that your YouTube channel is deserving of being brought back, and this is very important. If you're lucky enough that the CEO tells an administrative assistant, here, check into this and check it out, and the administrative assistant at the next daily meeting says, oh, I checked back on the Rosie O'Kelly channel, and good Lord, this is I'm surprised this channel lasted as long as it did. With, you know, let's say, for example, it was a channel filled with rants and hate speech and other things like that. That's just going to be a confirmed nail in the coffin, and there's really going to be no chance that you're getting that channel back. Okay, but you have created at least the impression at YouTube that you care about your channel being terminated. Again, this is the persistence part of it, okay? And in your letter, you want to acknowledge any kinds of your faults, and you want to tell her what the channel really means to you. And you also want to put that in your ongoing appeals. Do not appeal through your appeal button every day, even every week. You're going to be targeted as a spammer, and before you know it, you're going to get that note back that says, please note, you've already appealed twice and you can't appeal again. You don't want that door ever closed on you. So it's important that you space out your appeal so that you're not adding to YouTube's workload there, because somebody will actually see those, somebody will actually take time to read that, and you'll be frustrated because you get the same thing back. We've received your notice, we've received your appeal, and we have decided to keep your channel suspended. Please refer to YouTube's terms and conditions. Thank you very much, YouTube team. You got to be prepared to see that a lot of times. It doesn't mean that you're out of the ball game. It just means, in their opinion, you're not ready to get your channel back. But every time that you appeal, you have to take that different angle. You have to take a different slice of the pie. Pie slice number 1, this channel meant a lot to me, blah, blah, blah. Channel 2, this has all of my memories, blah, blah, blah. Channel 3, appeal number 3, I pledge to be a better YouTube member. Channel 4, this is the mistake I made, I apologize for that. Appeal number 5, I keep saying a channel, but appeal number 5. my last strike was unwarranted. I'm asking you to review that, blah, blah, blah. Or please review all of my strikes to see if they truly violated YouTube's terms and conditions. And remember, if you get a third strike or a second strike, a third strike to terminate your channel, and you already lost your second appeal on strike number 2, they're not going to even look at your appeal. They're not even going to care what you write. It's going to be an automatic rejection until 90 days have gone by. In other words, there's no chance of your channel coming back unless they made a stupid, flagrant mistake within 90 days. That's it. I don't care whether you stand on your head. That's what we talked about before. So the months go by and you've taken all kinds of different slices of the pie to approach. And now you're really frustrated. Well, you've written once or twice. You've expressed your opinion. There's one last thing that you can do. The nuclear option. And this will bring you action. But you cannot exercise the nuclear option until you've been at war for a significant period of time. Because if you go nuclear too fast, you've got zero chance of getting your channel restored because you've not done your penance and you've not done your contrition. You've not done your Hail Marys, your Our Fathers, Glorias, okay? You've not done that. So this nuclear option is only going to work as you're approaching the end of 3 months of your termination, okay? And that is that you've got to have a Twitter account, and if you don't have one, you need to get one and set it up. And you need to tweet YouTube. Now remember, number 1, you got to have good cause. And number 2, you have to be sorry if you've done something wrong. And number 3, you have to appeal on a compassionate grounds to have your channel restored. And you have even fewer characters now to tweet out. And you're going to tweet. It's not that hard to create a Twitter account. You don't have to have a lot of followers. You have to have nothing at all. All you have to do is tweet YouTube Team, @YouTube Team on Twitter. Post your appeal there with your channel link, www.youtube.com/user/ whatever your channel is. And you should always copy that and have that saved anyway in case something ever happens to your channel. You need to have the URL to do that. And you put that tweet out to YouTube. Now, YouTube gets these tweets and they show up in public on the YouTube face. Now, everything else that you've done to get your channel back is very internalized within YouTube. When you do this tweet externally, that's the first thing that the outside world sees of your battle to get your channel back. And YouTube is very sensitive to the public face of the way that they are perceived of being. Okay? Very, very important. So they take this very seriously, tweets that come in your channel. They'll put back an auto reply that says, did you go ahead and appeal through here's the link, and then you have to retweet to them at YouTube Team, and you say, yes, I appealed, but I don't think that my appeal was considered enough, and I'm appealing on compassionate grounds to just have somebody take a look at it. They will take a look at it, and you will get fast action at that point. So there it is, okay? Not the option I had to use, but one that I know people have used before to get their channels restored with success. But remember, it's a nuclear option. You're going to get an answer, and you may not, at the end of it all, like what you hear. But if you're persistent enough for long enough, you will get your YouTube channel restored. Anyway, this concludes the 3-part series. I'll also be doing a separate video on appealing ratings, community guideline ratings of having your videos partially monetized or not monetized, and how successful you can be in not just partially restoring monetization, but in many cases fully restoring monetization. I was shocked. You definitely want to stay tuned and watch that video. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Your comments are most welcome down below, and I really enjoyed doing this series with you. And most of all, I really love having my channel back. Thanks, everybody. Thumbs up or appreciated.